Arsenal's historic 3-0 win boiled down to some brilliance from Rice. But don't let that fool you. Arteta was setting traps from the very first minute, and this is how Arteta tactically dominated Ancelotti. Even before a ball was kicked, the obvious danger would be how Madrid would cope with Arsenal's potential midfield 5, given that they tend to defend in a loose 4-4-2. Their answer was visible from the early minutes, as they shifted into a 4-2-2-2 in the defensive phase. The key to making this work was the positioning and the work rate of Vinicius and Mbappe. It was crucial that they sit effectively on the double pivot of Lewis Skelly and Partey, so that rather than being outnumbered by Arsenal's midfield 5, they would have a sort of midfield 6 that would be making central progression impossible. Did this happen? Well, yes, particularly early on in the match. Situations like this showed how effective this could be at protecting the centre. In fact, one of the few things Arsenal did not do well in this match was take advantage of this wide space. As with the front two so narrow and passive, and the wingers also narrow and tucked in, there was plenty of room for the wide defenders to advance into, but they never did. In fact, Odegaard had to take matters into his own hands, dropping into the right centre-back space and showing just how easy it could be to progress outside that narrow two to penetrate. But that's nitpicking, because what happened is, for the most part, Madrid found out the brutal reality that expecting Vinicius and Mbappe to maintain positional discipline and the consistency to track the pivots for 90 minutes was a fantasy. So when the front two were disciplined with their defense, what the defender in possession saw was this. The cover shadows of Mbappe and Vinicius made passing to Lewis Skelly and Partey completely impossible, but as the match went on, the positioning of Mbappe and Vinicius began to waver, meaning that at least one of the pivots could be easily found, as they now had a clear route through or around the front two. What this meant is that now, especially if Bellingham and Rodrigo were higher, Merino, Odegaard and Rice now formed a 3 versus 2 against Modric and Camavinga, and that allowed them to have men between the lines, leading to situations such as this. But for all of this pressure through the centre, the game was won on the flanks for Arsenal, and Arteta took advantage of each of the flanks differently, in a testament to his ability to make the most of his players' strengths while taking advantage of the opposition's weaknesses. In the 3-2, Timber was the fullback who tucked in, and it is what Arsenal tend to do anyway, but in this match it had the added benefit of shielding the left, which is Madrid's main transitional strength. And where in league matches we might see Timber join the attack late from time to time, in this match he knew what he was up against on the counter-attack, so he almost always sat deep. And like we discussed, in the 4-2-2-2, the Madrid wingers were narrow, and though Odegaard could drift wide, when he was in the half space he would draw Bellingham even further infield to allow the Saka versus Alaba isolation. And it was a great battle between the pair, though Saka came out on top, often backing up Alaba into great crossing positions where he played multiple balls that would have been guaranteed goals on another day. But his ability to go both ways also saw him cut infield successfully, notably leading to the free kick that led to the first goal. Ancelotti had long spotted that this isolation was becoming an issue, and in the second half Bellingham was much more urgent in shifting deep to double-team Saka. The issue, of course, with Merino and Rice still potentially occupying Camavinga and Modric, there was a chance that Odegaard was lurking on the blind side in the half space, and neither Alaba nor Bellingham were great at covering his runs, though they weren't punished for this directly. But if the right side was about isolation, the left side was about overloads. And the way the Gunners executed these, well, nothing short of masterful. Down this side of the pitch, Lewis Skelly and Rodrigo, both hypothetically playing wide, found themselves infield whenever Arsenal were in possession. And this was essentially the beginning of the end for Madrid. This is where the Vinicius and Mbappe dynamic becomes a factor again. If they had been disciplined on the double pivot, Rodrigo could have remained tight on Rice. But instead, Lewis Skelly was often able to get away from Mbappe, leading to huge issues. Rodrigo was now 2 versus 1 down against Lewis Skelly and Rice. And if a pivot was trying to back him up, that pivot could be 2 versus 1 against Rice and Merino dropping in. From here, no matter what move Madrid made, it felt like the wrong move. A true catch-22. Whenever Rodrigo pushed onto Lewis Skelly, this was the instant trigger for Rice to move into this region. often receiving completely unchallenged, with Martinelli tying up Valverde and Merino tying up the central man. This would allow Rice and Martinelli to combine perfectly, when Rice created separation from Rodrigo to get into crossing positions in the box. And here's the brutal part. If Rodrigo was disciplined on Rice, assuming the front two hadn't tracked, Lewis Skelly was more than happy to get into dangerous central zones, threatening to create something special like we see here, or threading excellent passes. But before we get to the third goal, which was the culmination of everything that Arsenal plotted, we mustn't ignore the role of Mikel Merino. Rice was the hub, with effective combinations with Martinelli, Lewis Skelly, and importantly, Merino. Merino constantly dropped in, and it meant that Asensio was consistently unsure on whether to press. And the sheer physicality of Rice could take over in these situations, as whether it was a pivot or more often Rodrigo trying to keep up with him, they simply could not. And the magnum opus of this tactical setup comes in the 75th minute. The sloppy positioning of the front two means that the Arsenal pivots are accessible. This draws Valverde, but Merino has dropped in from 9 and is the extra receiver. Rice, as always, is ready to take advantage of the space whenever Rodrigo is central, and he progresses effortlessly as a result. Rodrigo recovers, but what was the issue all game whenever he did track well? Lewis Skelly is in the space, and he uses it to find Merino, who finishes. A tactical plan ruthless in its execution. But let me know what you made of the match tactics down below. And if you've always wanted to learn tactical analysis to a high level and transform your tactical understanding, now is the time. Tactical Mastery, my proven step-by-step system to master tactical analysis, is now live and available at an exclusive early bird price. For years you've asked how you can learn tactical analysis, and I get it, there's not much out there that explains tactics in depth but in a simple manner. When I began learning analysis nearly a decade ago, I faced the exact same frustrations. Instructors using complex jargon to sound clever rather than to teach, big organizations charging you a bunch then treating you like just another number, companies splitting content into dozens of modules to charge you separately for each, and subscription traps designed to charge you forever. But Tactical Mastery breaks down analysis brick by brick from the fundamentals to advanced concepts in the same straightforward style you know from the channel, with no charging per module, no subscriptions, no unnecessary complexity, and access to myself and a community of other analysts. The singular focus of the program is helping you master tactical analysis as efficiently as possible. By the end of the program, you'll gain the confidence to dissect any match, identify patterns invisible to most fans, and experience football at a level that transforms your relationship with the beautiful game. So if you're ready to finally master tactical analysis, click the link down in the comments or the description below.